Hello everyone, Leaf Reed here, and today we have Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Yes, this is the book of the hour of the day. This seems to be rather popular right now. So Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor around 200, late 200 AD. He apparently was a great scholar of the Stoics. So Meditations, this is funny, Meditations is basically his diary, more or less. Like, this is just a series of his insights, both philosophically and, of his, with the things he's observed. And at least in the intro or in the author's translation, it says that no one expected anyone to, he didn't expect anyone to actually read any of this. So in that sense, it's kind of like his diary. So how is Meditations? First of all, it's pretty good. It's not bad. I think if you're new to philosophy, this is a really good place to start out because it's pretty short. It's very short. It's very kind of to the point. What I found, I was never really bored reading this. I was actually very engaged, and it wasn't like, a bunch of hypotheticals and whatever. It's like, this is how people are. This is how a vain person acts, what compels them to act this way. So it's very straightforward and very personal because he's just writing it to his own notes. Also, I noticed that the top here is I just bought this on Amazon a few weeks ago. So the top here is obviously some other kind of text or some kind of typing error, and there's scratches on the back. Really low quality stuff. I know it was a cheap paperback, but it's kind of shocking. And even there's some margining kind of wrong here. That being said, I still like it. I don't know, it kind of adds to the theme of whatever, kind of a just thrown together kind of energy. Yeah, this is just this guy's ramblings. Let's, jump in. So when we think of Stoicism, we kind of think of this stereotype of the man with no emotion. He has no emotion. He is not affected by anything. He is neither happy nor sad. He's just a total neutral. And so it's kind of like that. What it is that what Marcus really seems to get at is that you can, or you should, control all of your emotions and your thoughts. And I think that's a really big proponent of this, that I really took away. There's a passage in here, and I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it's essentially that take care in how you think. Essentially, the mind is the texture, the mind is dyed by the color of its thoughts. It's a variation, I think, on that. But the main message is that your thoughts make up who you are. And you're kind of like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But how you actually apply that is okay, if you're depressed, if you're anxious right now, those are the two main ones that Zoomers and millennials seem to complain about all the time. It's why? And it's a great argument to make, and this goes into more almost religious kind of territory, but it's if you're anxious and depressed, or you're having a negative emotion, and there's not an obvious thing. It's okay, that guy cut me off, or, so this guy at work was an asshole, I'm angry now. But sometimes people will just have these moments of, I'm anxious about nothing, or I'm depressed about nothing. And if you can't actually find a reason, it's to really challenge your own thoughts and say, okay, pause, what's going on up here? What is actually happening? Why am I having these negative thoughts that I actually don't need to have? Because the whole compulsion is that if you're in control of your own mind, why would you give yourself negative thoughts when you don't need them? And of course, the main point of negative thoughts really is for, evolutionary. Remember, don't go to this area because there's dangerous animals, or there's a dangerous tribe, and remember this because this will kill you, and that will kill you, and everything will kill you, basically. So it's okay, so that's hardwired into us. But outside of that, you don't need to have negative thoughts all the time. And it's interesting too, because I talk about the religious aspect. Well, it goes into certain passages in here are very, very Christian. Even though there's a part where he directly derides Christians, because they're still like a second-class citizen at this point. It's because this is like, what, late 200s? So by 312 or 3914, around there is when they had the Council of Nicaea, and it's like official that this is the new religion. And he makes some very Christian statements talking about like a singular God who is composed of the entire universe and whose soul is scattered across all the other souls, and that when you die, your soul simply returns to this oneness. Like, well, this doesn't sound very pagan. It's really interesting. That's another big theme in the book, is that Marcus talks a lot, at least probably, like, there's 12 books in here, or 12 chapters really, and at least once he talks about death, or the non-permanence of things, that things just go in and they go out. Money comes and goes, people come and go, nothing is permanent, everything is in a constant state of entering and exiting. And he later elaborates on this to not be, oh, well, it's not just it's here and it's gone and it's dead. He sees it more as a sense of change, of literally like a kumbaya circle of life, that everything is in constant change. You're in constant change. I'm in constant change. This chair is in constant change. This chair that's holding up my camera, it's stable, it's solid, but if you think about it, it's in a constant state of decay. People are in a constant state of decay. No one lives forever. But it's not to say that that change or that decay is bad, because from that state, your cells are also regenerating and they're giving new life. You grow, you shed your skin cells and they grow back. So it's a state of decay and regeneration. And in that process, you create new life, or you create new things, or you create new books, and you create things which go on beyond this cycle of rebirth and decay. And he even brings up, I think, in some part, like the whole, yes, your body will go into the ground and act as nourishment for the plants, or something along those lines. So very like the Lion King, basically. So that's like one main theme. And again, yeah, the control of your mind, the state of your emotions. And so what Stoicism really seems, at least what I get from this, is that it's about overthinking your thoughts, is the way I would say it, is like being aware or super aware of your thoughts and your emotions, and deciding what to give into. Like, okay, you just got this award or something. Are you going to let yourself be arrogant and prideful and gloat and perhaps, make the guy that award should have gone to feel very uncomfortable, and things like this, right? So very basic stuff. And if you're suffering, if you're in pain, if something really bad happened to you, maybe like you didn't get the award you thought you were going to get, are you going to let yourself be super bitter about that? Or are you going to allow yourself to congratulate this other guy, and maybe he'll, somehow help you out in the future, kind of thing. So it's very much that, he talks about pain and pleasure, and how, to be indifferent to either of those, and to be indifferent to everything in life. And there's a line here that I totally vibe with, and it sounds bad, but it's not. So that it's to basically pretend as if you are dead, because, and this goes more into Christianity, but like once you don't have the fear of death, or you don't have the fear of bad things happening, it's like nothing affects you. And that's how you actually get this, not that I'm a stoicist or anything, but that's how you get this stoic man persona here, who's just like, yeah, I'm so badass. You could kill someone in front of me and I wouldn't even blink, man, or whatever, because it's like mastering your impulses, your emotions, mastering the lower faculties. He talks about the ruling component, I think he says, the ruling part. He says, you need to be in control of your ruling part, or it will rule you. So again, it's like, they talk about total freedom. Well, like total freedom is that, you can get addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever, and then you're not actually free. You're actually a slave to your desires. So true controlled freedom is, this is kind of me putting my own spin on this, but it's really like looking at yourself as a separate person and saying, okay, I'm going to maximize this guy, and he's going to be, you know, really good at this, this, and this, and he's going to be totally free to do whatever he wants, and he won't be taken down or held down by his addictions or his passions or his desires that would take him downwards, that would make him a worse person. So it's controlled and a focused freedom. He talks a lot about just being nice to other people, like just being a good dude. It as simple as it is, as the whole kind of, it has kind of a Bill and Ted vibe to it at times, where it's just like, yeah, man, just be awesome to each other. He says like it's the natural duty and goodness for men to do good things to each other, because in this limited time we have, that kindness is what germinates more kindness and more goodness in the earth. And he says that's like it's in one passage, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says that is the point of life, is to do good deeds to others, because it makes them feel better and it makes you feel better, and the world benefits from it. I talked about his crypto-Christianity. He kind of calls the Christians as being good for the sake of being good, in a weird way, that they're obstinate, and that you should only do it as your natural desire. I'm not sure if he's like coping, or if he's secretly Christian, or if he's kind of like, yeah, well, they're Christian, but I have my own beliefs that are the exact same, but they're different. I don't know. It's really interesting how he just talks about a lot of very Christian progressive thought that is, whether by osmosis or whatever, just seems to be like very, very mainstream to us today, which is, I don't know, that's like kind of like crazy, like, okay. And even on the metaphysical side, again, he talks about this one consciousness, and that essentially every animal and every soul, even people, can be one part of the consciousness. But in order to be a stoic or rational person or reasonable person, to operate with total reason, suddenly you have a different soul, or a soul within itself, that is separate from the distributed soul of the masses. There's one good metaphor. He says, you know, sometimes it's a lot harder to take back someone who's been exiled from a society, because every single person in the society is like a leaf or a branch on a tree, and to cut off that branch, it will then kind of leave, but it doesn't stop growing. It'll start growing in a different direction. And then if you want to reinterpret it and reintegrate into your society, it's that kind of outgrown the spot that it used to fit in. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but everything continues to grow. So you can't just cut something off socially and then expect it to come back and everything to be the same, basically. And again, he also makes like weird Christian, not necessarily arguments, but he says basically the universe is either two things. One, it is simply a bunch of random atoms or particles or whatever that have no motive, or there is an intelligent design or designer at the center of creation, which has constructed everything with a purpose. And so he doesn't really, and he kind of argues more so obviously for the intelligent design, that there is a point to everything. Yeah, so here's a good example about being indifferent. Loss is naught but change, and change is the joy of universal nature, and by her all things are ordered well. From the beginning of ages they have been shaped alike, and to all eternity they will be the same. So, and he goes on, but it's I mean, that's kind of like it in a nutshell, really. It's like being indifferent to change and negative things, to not allow negative thoughts or feelings affect you. In fact, in the opening chapter, I think the most important thing he says is that he gives, it's kind of like an Oscar speech. He's thanking his dad, his senators, his councilmen, his mother, and his mother. So what he says about his mother is very interesting. He says that she taught him how to not do bad deeds, but also not to give into bad thoughts as well. And I find that very interesting because that kind of like lays the underpinning for everything. Another interesting thing he says in the intro is about his scholars and his tutors, which he says he thanks them for that he did not spend days upon days languishing upon texts and books, and he got kind of the most important parts in the footnotes, which is just, again, like you don't need to read a bajillion books to be a big brain scholar and actually, get the point. You just need the summary notes, and reading a lot. I can totally agree with that. There's a lot of books out there that are total trash and total reincorporated or reinterpreted words. Like, you could take this book and make it at least 5 times as long by expanding on every little detail, and that's just a very academic problem, I guess, of academia rather than actual philosophy. Again, the second, so besides loss and indifference and whatever, the second big thing he really talks about is nature and the natural world. And he basically says that anything natural is good. Even death, that's like the natural process of life. So you shouldn't be afraid of it, because that's how new things come to be. The entire point of life having meaning is that your days are numbered. If we knew that we would just live forever, which a lot of people kind of delude themselves into thinking, you never actually live your life. You never actually go fully to the extent that you could. And a lot of people kind of live in this daydream scenario rather than an awake scenario, which is a very similar thread or theme in the Bhagavad Gita, which is another ancient self-help philosophy book. No man can prevent you from living according to the plan of your nature, and nothing can befall you which is contrary to the plan of the nature of the universe. So again, he's talking about, what is your natural talent? What is your natural inclinations? How do you reshape your habits? I mean, this is something, maybe by some of the quotes I've read from this book or this book itself, is that, if you can think about your own nature and your own habits, therefore you can outthink your own nature and your own habits, right? So, if I know that I have a paper to write, and I say, well, I'm just going to sit down and watch 5 minutes of television, or I'm just going to, have a candy bar or something. I know what I'm saying consciously, but my subconscious says, no, I'm going to watch 1 hour of television. I'm going to enjoy. So, it's like we want to build a better self. And the way we build a better self is by externalizing and saying, okay, you say you want to watch 5 to 10 minutes of TV. I know what that's actually going to happen, not because it's what you want to happen. It's because I know you. I know you. I know you because you are going to do what your nature tells you to. And so, I mean, along with this book and a bunch of other things, it's a really deep philosophical switch that I've made in the past few years. A lot of people talk about, what is the main factor in shaping a person? Is it nature or nurture? It's a classic question. You have John Locke tabula rasa, who says, no, it's a blank slate, and basically, whatever you expose that child to, they will become. If you expose them to music, they'll become a musician. If you expose them to math, they'll become a mathematician. They are just a empty computer program ready to be programmed. And of course, that's kind of extreme, because that's not true, because people are born with natural talents. You can have mathematicians who give birth to artists or painters for some reason. And you're like, okay, that was weird, but hey, they're good at what they do, right? And so for the longest time, it's like, yeah, well, it's a bit of both, right? People have natural inclinations when they are born. But anyway, it's interesting because I definitely lean, after reading this, I definitely have lent more to the nature side of the argument, that, I see people who or you see stories about this, like some guy working in like a boring government office job, and he can like shred on the guitar, or he can paint a beautiful painting, and he could be doing something completely artistic and creative, or something completely different with his life. It might not make as much money, it might not, be as good, but it might fulfill it might fulfill his spirit or his nature or whatever it is, because that is what he's naturally good at. And you hear stories about this all the time, and you see it in films and whatever, people who are stuck in situations that they don't want to be in. And sometimes it's not even that they're bad situations. Sometimes they're like rich people who would rather be an impoverished artist or something. Like they can't live the life they want to. I mean, the friggin' royal family is living proof of that. With people who just want to be left alone and not be treated as celebrities or whatever. So it's become my philosophy, and certainly thanks to this, that you need to act on your nature. If you don't embrace your nature to some degree, you're gonna have a lot of regrets. You're not really gonna live your life. You're gonna live someone else's life. And you can still have your boring government job, but like, for God's sakes, if you have an idea or a passion, you gotta harness it in some way. And that's why I make these videos. I'm never gonna be, I'm never gonna go back to university and get my BA in arts or literature, because everyone I know who got like a degree in literature or a BA in arts had to get an additional degree to get proper work. But that's just how it is. But I still have my passion for reading and books and stories and adventures, and the effects of those, and how they shape your mind and your psyche and make your lives eventually better. And that's one of these books. And I think that's a good place to maybe just stop this video, because again, it's very short. There's not a long book. It's like friggin', I read this in like a couple days, so might as well read it. Not all of it is good. Sometimes it's just just like him ranting about stuff. But yeah, anyway, I think that's a good place to stop it. And as always, guys, keep reading.